Hello once again, and welcome to Creatives Flow with a VO. This is Tim D'Adamo, the VO, or a voiceover for you people just getting into this podcast. Well, today's going to be a fun one because, as you can hear by our lead-in music, I am once again back with my friends from Discovery Channel and the show that we did together, Outrageous Acts of Science. I was the lucky stiff that got to be their voiceover, and this gentleman, that is, as I promised, from across the pond, is the actual creator of the show. We'll be drinking coffee as we talk about his process for creating Outrageous Acts of Science and his brand new show on Netflix, The Escapists. Don't miss it, it's hysterical. And of course, you can catch Outrageous Acts of Science on Discovery Plus or on Science Channel On Demand. So I'm just as ready as you are to hear the lovely English accent of Mr. Gareth Cornwall. Good morning, afternoon, Mr. Gareth Cornwall.
Yes, just got into the afternoon in England.
So it's coffee time for you, for both of us now.
This is my pre-lunch coffee, and that's your wake-up one. Are you in which one of your estates are you living in at the moment?
Yes, I'm in my Florida estate.
Your Floridian estate, Lord of Florida. Good to see you, man. I think last time I saw you in real life was in a pub in Camden, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was in Camden Town, man. It was just awesome. What a great party. Do I still owe you money for that?
You could keep it. Keep the pints. I bought you. That was your European tour, wasn't it? Weren't we a little leg on it?
God, dude, I absolutely fell in love with England. I could move there tomorrow. I absolutely love it there.
What did you like about it?
Well, of course, the history. Just you're gonna think this is weird, and I swear to God, every once in a while, I see a past life, and I see myself in a nice warm flat with a dog at my feet reading books.
Oh yeah.
And when I got there, it was like the scales fell off. I was like, this is where I was. So, and I was jogging through the neighborhood I was in London.
Cosmic.
And I was like, this is it. This is like it, with the cobblestone streets and the 400-year-old buildings. And
so you think that you were an Englishman living in a flat with a dog?
Well, maybe.
Doesn't sound like a very interesting past life.
With a roaring fire. It's really stupid. It's weird, but I see it every once in a while.
Well, there you go then. That's why you like us English people you have to work with. You got that kindrence.
Loved York. York was really, really cool. And you guys were absolutely spot on with Whitby. It was so cool.
Oh, yes. It is lovely there. Did you get fish and chips?
The fish and chips, of course. In the beef fat, of course. What's the difference? We make all some beef fat, darling. I'm like, okay, perfect.
Nice. Good heart health there for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
English cuisine.
And then we went to Scotland.
Yeah, lovely. I love it. If you catch the weather in Scotland, it can be an absolute treat. I think it's probably the most beautiful place in the world. But are we doing the podcast here? Am I liking my best answers?
This is all just bull. We're just ballarn. This is all BS. I haven't even asked you the first question.
All right, so you're going to edit all this up, are you? If you're going to trawl through it?
Yeah. I mean, right now this is all just, as I say, pish posh. And my wife hates when I say that. Yeah. Anyway, enough of the pish posh. So tell us about your new Netflix series, The Great Escapists. How did that come to be?
It's a great place, really great guys that run it. And I got offered I got called up by Richard Hammond, the man from Top Gear Grand Tour, literally called up and he said, I've got this science show, like an engineering science show on a desert island. And Amazon got the money for it. Do you want to do it, essentially? And it was kind of too good to miss, really, because it was kind of, I mean, I don't know this for certain. It's probably, I would say, the biggest budget ever kind of engineering pop science show ever made. It's got to be, because it was over $1 million. It was over £1 million an episode. Ridiculous.
Wow.
And it was all done out in the Pacific on an island. And it was kind of, the whole vibe was, he just kind of called me up and said, Amazon really like this idea of that I've always wanted to do, which is I'm in a shipwreck with a buddy, and what could you actually build if you're on a desert island? If you had the scientific knowledge or engineering knowledge and know-how, and you had obviously Robinson Crusoe style infinite time, because you're there for years, what could you build? What could you do? With the scraps of your shipwrecked ship and all the natural resources, what could you put together and make to basically have a laugh, entertain yourself, look after yourself, and then try and escape? So I got into that. So I kind of got into try and turn that into actual script and, like how on earth would we make that?
Okay.
And it was a really great opportunity. So I left October for that just because October we're doing some brilliant stuff, but just to be offered something that colossal, I thought I've got to have a go at that. Otherwise, I'll kick myself from it. So yeah, so we did that, and then that kind of took me through into lockdown, 8 months into lockdown, and then we finished that and delivered it. And I kind of got to thinking, I was with the kid because the kids weren't at school because of the virus and all that. And I sat around, I was writing ideas down for a few weeks. I thought I'd take a break anyway because it's a pretty intense show making an Amazon thing. And then I just thought, you know what? I've always talked about making my own company, my own production company. Why don't I just do it? And I kind of sat down and thought, actually, I know these people at Amazon. I know these people at Netflix. I know they do. I know these people in the UK, BBC. I know as many people as, other production companies. Why don't I have a go? So I do a bit of consultancy for people, like exec in terms of developing shows at the moment. But what I'm trying to do is I'm basically on the pitching my ideas to anyone that will listen. So I now am Cornick Productions at the moment, which is scary, but it's one of those things like, I'm 6 months in, and it's like, at least I've had a go at it. I don't want to get to 50 and go, I should have done that, when I can, or that thing that you can often do with yourself, I think, where, well, I can do anyway, just go in, wait till the time's right. You've got 2 young kids now. It's a bit stressful to have your own company. What about the money, blah, blah, blah. It's one of those things where it's like, if you don't go for it at some point, you're always going to have a reason not to. Do you know what I mean?
Right. You're going to have regrets that you don't want to have.
Exactly. So I've leapt off that diving board. And what's quite cool is the reception. I thought a few people, when I called them up or started sending ideas, would be like, oh, yeah, right, you want to do a TV show. But people are like, I think nowadays, because of the virus and because of kind of how TV's made, the channels understand that, A, they don't care where my address is or how big my meeting room is anymore, because they do.
Not anymore. No.
Like we're doing now. You don't have to be in a studio anymore. And also, I think that they know that I can put together a team because I've done it for them before. It's not really an issue. What they're interested in is an idea and a good idea, and all that can be kind of worked out. So I'm confident. Although I would say it's the toughest thing ever, because it's you probably know from auditioning is super tough as well. But you're popping these ideas in constantly, getting knocked back, and some days you just think, oh, why am I bothering? Some days it's like, yeah, I'm going to be a millionaire this time next year. It's all going brilliant, So it's one of those things where you gotta sort of keep at it, keep trucking away, and hopefully we'll get something going. So right now I've got a couple of things that are in very early stage development with a couple of channels, which is great. But that's that's a long way from actually saying action and shooting the first thing. But it's one of the.
But you got some interest in them.
Yeah, exactly, and it's got into the shuffle, into the pile of things to be considered for the first bit of money to develop it, which then hopefully would become the next bit of money to maybe shoot a pilot, which would then become the next proper bit of money to actually make the show. And so that's exciting. And right now I'm just trying to get as many plates spinning as possible, because I kind of, as a one-man crew, I kind of just need one plate to smash. No, that's not right. Is there one plate to stay spinning? Keep spinning.
Keep spinning. You got to keep that baby spin. Now, do you have crews going out, or is it all basically on you? I mean, are you writing? Are you producing? Are you directing? All of the above? What are you doing?
It is all on me right now. So I have, I've already developed a car thing for another channel. And what we did there was I hired in a couple of people to help me kind of do research and flesh it out and casting. So as and when I might bring a few of the people in, but that kind of, I've got to get some money out of the channel really to do that, because I haven't got a massive backing, pot of money. Me and the wife have been saving for quite a while actually, and always thought about, I will run a company. So the virus kind of forced my hand. I kind of just went, well, let's just do it now. Why not? Everyone,
It opened doors in a lot of ways. The weird thing, and I interviewed another guy from a large agency actually he was with in Texas at that time. And he said, what the pandemic showed us is we don't need to fly everywhere to have a meeting. A meeting we can have eye to eye, to get approval, to pitch an idea. What it showed us is all this time and money we spent on lunches and flying places and hotels and dinners and booze. And he said, it can happen in an hour on a Zoom meeting. So,
exactly.
And it's the same thing for you. You can probably, direct stuff from a desktop.
Well, I'll tell you, the funny thing is, so the very last bit of The Great Escapists.
Was there only one show I watched?
There's one season, 6 hours of.
Okay. So I only saw the one show. All right, good.
Yeah. So basically, the way we kind of structured the show was we have these like flashback interviews that kind of help the narrative arc. And the idea is Tory Belleci is the Mythbusters guy, and you got Richard Hammond, the Top Gear Grand Tour guy.
Dude, that's so cool.
They're both in a prison cell talking to cops, and you don't quite ever know why they're in a police cell until the end. And you don't quite know why they're talking these kind of nondescript sort of South American sounding interrogators. But that was our sort of narrative device. So anyway, we shot those during lockdown, and I think it was the very first thing Amazon had shot. So everyone was super cautious about COVID. It was ridiculous. So we had to keep the numbers down. So we had a London studio. By this time, Tori was back in California. So we got a studio in LA. And we had super minimal amount of crew. So it was literally just the set builders went in for a day. They cleared off. In went the DOP, lit it. And then we had a director in America directing it and a director in the UK doing Richard. And they put a camera down the Zoom for me. So I sat at home. It's the best gig ever, actually. I just sat at home. And I could see the camera that they were shooting because it was like this interrogation scene. So they piped all the cameras through, and I could talk to the director and I could talk to the host as well and give them a few notes. And the funniest thing was the studio the British studio was only a mile and a half down the road from my house, right? And the other one's in California. The internet link was better to California than it was to South London. And it was really, so as soon as I got online in America, it was amazing. I sat there chatting away. So it was amazing to be able to do that. And I think really, I mean, if I'd have been there in real life, I'm not sure I would have added much. In fact, as you can tell, I talk a lot. So it probably stopped me from just babbling on incessantly to everyone.
Dude, that's what this whole podcast is about, to hear your story, not mine.
So the takeout from that is Zoom helped me, get to the point faster. So I appreciate it.
I mean, I don't know if you being on, where the hell was it? It was a Pacific island, you said?
Yeah, we were on an island just off the coast of Panama. So it was kind of it's a big private island. It's owned by this dude who is he's the guy who owns the biggest hardware store franchise chain in Central America. Oh. So like he's got a few pounds,
beautiful
dollars. And this private island was great because he kind of, we had one guy to ask permission to do stuff, and we were blowing things up and building stuff and making things and, launching fireworks and all kinds of stuff. And I'm sure they won't mind me saying that it's sort of well known, that area, for people who move drugs around. So it's good to have one person to get permission with who can explain to the police what's going on. So, because all kinds of strange stuff happens there in boats, as you can imagine. So it was quite good to have that line of communication.
Oh, yeah.
But we were genuinely isolated. It was literally, there was one resort there, which had something like a very nice resort, had about sort of 15, 20 like chalets, little bungalow things. And we had 70 people there.
Yeah.
So we had we had local guys, we had some American crew, we had a lot of British people came over to do that. So we had this crazy schedule. It was mind-boggling, like people coming in and out of houses. People were flying in from Panama City, which was like a half-hour flight in a little plane. They were coming in every day. There was like a commuter shuttle plane. It was crazy. But the vibe it gave us was, it genuinely felt like you were on a desert island, because there was just us. There was no shops, there was no pubs, there was nothing. It was us, the resort, and that was it. Because this fella who owned the island,
not a horrible place to be in the middle of a pandemic, I guess, right?
Well, it was funny when we left. We saw it on the news, but the internet was quite bad. And when I came through Panama Airport and was going back to London, suddenly there's all these dudes in hazmat suits taking your temperature, and I was like, oh wow, this has got quite real. And by the time I was back in London, I think it was about 3-4 days, and we were locked down in London. So I just got back in time. We could have all, we'd gone on for another 2 weeks. We could have maybe been all trapped there. I'm sure we would have, realized, but it was, so we kind of timed it really well. Well, that show probably never would have got finished.
Or you wouldn't have been able to get home. I mean, they were not letting people off planes and boats. And now we, in late February, took a cruise. And by the time we had gotten back, it was March. and they were keeping boats in port. Now, we never go on cruises, but we were like, let's do something this year. And we saw this coronavirus thing coming out. Well, I got to tell you, if there was a worser place to be during pandemic, it certainly wasn't here, because you could be outside and it was warm and sunny. Yeah. The sucky thing was they actually closed our beaches down. You could not get on the beach.
Really?
You could not walk on because they didn't realize how transmittable it was yet.
Well, Tim, as a man of science, it did all kind of frustrate me, some of that, because I think there were some laws I could see in America and over here that were kind of put in place, and it was more out of fear than scientific or logic or common sense. Stuff like no one has ever caught a cold on the beach.
Exactly. That's what they didn't know yet,
because the wind's blowing.
They thought it was going to be another 19. You don't remember the Spanish flu, but America had this thing called the Spanish flu in 1919, and it killed millions.
Yep.
And it was incredibly easily transmittable, and they didn't know if it was going to be that bad again. So that's where they're like, let's be uber cautious and just kind of discover shit as we go. And that's basically what had to happen. So, I mean, this is a question that's always fascinated me about you particularly. How did you decide to cross-pollinate action and adventure, and sometimes people doing some really crazy shit with a science show? I mean, you've basically taken action and adventure and crossed it with a science show. Did that come to you as a lightning bolt? That's kind of your patent pending.
Do you mean the great Escapists?
Exactly. Well, Outrageous Acts of Science. I don't know if you were part of Outrageous Acts of Psych too, somehow, some way.
Oh no, okay. I wasn't. I'd like not to be associated with that.
Okay, that's fine. I'll take that.
It wasn't. You did the voice on that, didn't you?
They loved me so much on Outrageous Acts of Science, they brought me in for that one.
Well, that was an interesting one. That just kind of got made, and no one sort of said anything.
It lasted one season, and
fine.
It was gone.
Which is fine. Well, if they'd maybe come and talk to me, I could have made it last more than one. But
well,
I won't. I don't hold any bitterness.
And that's funny because when Discovery had our show, I wasn't so sure it was going to make it. And then all of a sudden they said, "Hey, instead of you spending all this money on a studio so we can do ISDN," because Discovery at that time would not use Source Connect. The reason why they finally hooked me up with you guys is A, it was your show, and B, London was all over using Source Connect. So I was like, okay, why not go right to the source instead of having you record me as a middleman, then get your approval, then have you guys mix the show and edit the show. So anyway, back to the question. I mean, how did that come to you to do that?
Action shot. Well, I hate to say that I've got a motto because that sounds a bit pathetic, but I always try and I love science. I started out as a physics teacher.
I did not know that.
And then well, there you go. And then I got into TV, and I think there's a bit of me that wants to use TV to teach. I'm not really into reality shows or being horrible to people on telly, unless it's really funny. So I thought, I really love science, and maybe I find it easy to understand because I learnt science at school, but I don't think it should be that hard. And the thing that's always made me laugh is people go, "Oh, science, I don't get that. I don't understand science." And I've always found that as silly as me saying, "Oh, well, I didn't do English at college, so I can't read a book because it's all English in there, isn't it? Those words. Oh, I don't know anything about it." It's ridiculous. I'm no good at maths. I don't do maths. I don't do science. Like, they're such colossal things. But they're such colossal things. I'm sure if I had time with anyone, I could find elements of those whole, subjects that you could understand.
Well, and I love science, but I suck at maths. Suck at math.
Well, it's funny because I've read a lot of research on the maths is quite interesting. It's a self-fulfilling, they think it's a self-fulfilling sort of prophecy with maths. So if you're younger and working in a mixed ability class, if you work with a class and you maybe don't totally nail some that week's subjects, quadratic equations or whatever it might be, and you go, "Oh, I can't do it," and you're left behind, and it's not sorted out there and then in your understanding, you drag that with you, and on you go to the next step, and then because you've lost the building block in that sort of pyramid of maths learning, you've got these holes behind you, and you get dragged onto the next, dragged to the next. And what they found with students when they've evaluated them is it's not that they're no good at maths. They've just got so many holes left behind them because they've been dragged on by teachers or the way the school's set up, they haven't filled in those holes behind them. So you do get to a point where you get so far down to maths, you're losing. You've lost so many of the foundations you can't learn anymore because
that was totally me.
Builds on all that. But that's not because you're bad at maths. That's because somebody has kind of let you down as a kid at some point.
It's the nuns.
But you taught by nuns.
Dude. And if you didn't get it, you were stupid.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Really? Well, there you go.
Don't be stupid.
So those nuns.
So, and by the time I got to college, by the time I got to high school, you only had to take 1 year of math. And I was DD. I still remember my grades, DD, FD. D means just above failing, and F is fail. So I got
okay. F is fail.
Yeah, so
right.
I got in my third quarter. I got fail, and then D, and I just barely passed. Well, you didn't have to do the last 3 years of high school. You didn't have to do math anymore. Well, you did. I went to 2-year college, and I said, oh, I got to take algebra again. So I was like, okay. So I took my friend, and I tried it with a tutor. This kid was so smart, and I swear to God, Gareth, he looked at me and finally said, dude, just give up. I can't teach you. You just don't get numbers. You look at, because I look at numbers and it looks like spaghetti in a bowl to me. And art, I straight A's with art.
Oh, well, there you go. But I'm not saying everyone is a maths genius and they've all been let down. But
you have a doctorate? Are you a doctorate?
No.
Okay, I wasn't sure because if you were a physics teacher, I didn't sure if you had
over here you do a degree. So I did a degree in physics, and then you do a conversion degree as well, so an education degree with it. Okay. So I'm I'm an undergrad physics and a bachelor of education.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what it says. I haven't seen that certificate in 20 years. So
all in the UK. Did you cross the pond to get your education?
No, all in the UK. I went to university in a place called Exeter, which is in a really nice part of England called Devon, a county called Devon, which is sort of down. Devon and Cornwall are kind of seaside counties down there, so very nice beaches and very laid back, chilled out. It's still part of the country. You can actually get sunshine there in the summer in that part of England.
Okay. Is that where you're from? Are you from London?
No, I am from the second city, which is called Birmingham.
Okay, sure.
The original Birmingham, not the one in Alabama, and home of Ozzy Osbourne.
Well, that ain't no regional. The regional's in Alabama.
I would love. I really want to go to Birmingham, Alabama, just to go there and tell people I'm from Birmingham. I just want to go there for a perverse reason.
No, the original's loves.
Yeah. So Birmingham is the home of heavy metal.
Oh, sure.
This is where Black Sabbath came from, Ozzy Osbourne. So I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, man.
And Duran came from there later on.
Pretty much all my favorite bands are from the UK.
Oh, well,
I'm a Yes man. I love Yes. I love Led Zeppelin. But
half of Led Zeppelin from Birmingham, Bonham and Plant.
Yep.
In fact, Plant's actually very near to my area. Genesis. Oh, they're all posh boys. They're all from London. They're not all there.
I don't know. I thought, I got to tell you, then Phil Collins. He's got a real, he's
a bit of a geezer. He's from sort of the outskirts of London. The rest of them all went to a school called Charterhouse, which is a very famous. We call them public schools, which is the opposite of what you say. Which public schools are fee-paying schools here.
Right. Well, and I heard the difference between a mod and a rocker. I love The Who. I heard the difference between a mod and a rocker from a man who was a creative director at Leo Burnett from London. He said, well, here's the difference. And they told me, what the difference between a mod and a rocker was. And it was pretty cool, to hear the story, because he was of that generation. He's retired since, but he was of that generation. And he said, I was a rocker. He said, I was a trouble boy. Yeah, I used to, get on my little scooter and, beat people up and shit like that. Whatever.
That's it, yeah. The mod culture sort of reverberates, keeps coming back in our sort of pop culture again and again. It's quite a cool period of time with The Who, and then it kind of came back with Britpop in the 90s, and there's still elements of it. It's a very, really creative time then. So, I love my old man is into, all that. The Who is his favorite band ever, really, I think, before the Beatles. And so I went through his record collection. So I'm kind of probably a generation behind what I should be listening to.
You know what? My niece is now, my goddaughter is in her mid-20s, She's back to vinyl only. And she, she listens to Beatles, Stones, Bowie. I turned around to Joni Mitchell. At first she goes, I don't like her. Now she loves her.
Brilliant. Well, I bought a record player actually at Christmas. So I got myself a little record because I wanted to show my kids actually, because my eldest daughter's 6 now. The music, we've got like Alexas everywhere. So you just ask for a song and you get it. And, they use YouTube and all that, hear everything. And I just wanted to kind of show them a real thing, like how they used to come in an album. So I've kind of started buying my favorite kind of Beatles albums and some Pink Floyd. And I just want to kind of start adding to show them like this is a thing that it used to be, where it's kind of like a whole little universe itself that you can put on the record player and listen to. But of course, at the moment, they're just like, why would you want to do that when you can just say the word? Why do you have to get that bit of plastic and pop it on and get the needle that makes a noise?
Because there's nothing like that sound.
Yeah.
The analog sound of a record, a needle on a record, that's the way it was recorded to be. It was recorded in analog, and when you put that needle on the record, especially if it's a new one and it doesn't crackle or pop yet, there's nothing like that. That sound is just so rich. And as good as digital is, and it is really good, it can't be duplicated. It just, not to my ear, because when I listen to Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, or, Welcome to the Machine or something like that on a needle with a needle on a record, it's holy crap. And we have really strayed, but that's okay. I'm going to keep all this because it's fun and people like to hear this kind of stuff.
We stray. Well, we could talk about audio engineering and compression and
we sure could.
valve amps. I'm sure we could talk about that with our shared history of recording music and voice and stuff. Well, the one thing I was going to say to you, so I listened to a few of your other chats with other people, and I guess what made me laugh to myself was I'm maybe one of the first creatives. I hate being called a creative. It sounds quite poncy, doesn't it? That creative, but I'm actually you're dealing with someone running a show who's actually tried to do voiceover, which you
did do voiceover.
Exactly.
That's I replaced you.
You replaced me in the US of A. I think I still was going out
at first. When it was still called You Have Been Warned.
Yeah. So
that's right, because you did the voiceover for You Have Been Warned.
That's it. So have you got any tips for me, Tim, on my voice? Would you like to hear a bit of it? Because you think I can do it. I can do it now. If you want. So it was something like, "Welcome to Outrageous Acts of Science. Coming up today, a man rides on a whale, a horseshoe is thrown into space, and there's a woman with a really large foot." All this and more coming up in the show.
When they want you, they want you. The one thing I keep trying to get through to people, and I know actors are still listening to this show, the one thing I try to get through to the people is when they book you, you're what they had in mind.
Yeah.
You're exactly what they had in mind. Now, maybe you surprised them, and that's why you got the job. But maybe you were surprised. And ooh, I didn't think of that. Wow, a British guy. Let's get a guy that's got a cool British voice. Other than that...
Well, can I tell you how I got that job?
No, I thought you created it and you did the spec work and they liked your voice and they said, let's keep him.
Well, right. Okay. Well, that's the story. Essentially.
Can I tell you the guy I don't know if you listen to my friend Chuck Schiller.
No.
The guy with the voice.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, listen to his voice.
Yeah.
He was a creative director. He was a VP creative director.
Oh.
And he presented Nokia. And he's got this voice like this. I mean, that's Chuck's voice. His natural speaking voice is like this. Nokia, connecting people. And they're like, well, who's that? Chuck said, it's me. We want you. And he said, yeah, well, I'm not really supposed to do that. Well, now he's the voice of one of the biggest truck manufacturers in the United States of America, Ram Trucks.
Oh, really?
And his voice is just so spot on I swear to God, they colored the spots to match Chuck's voice.
Really? He's got that deep, masculine truck voice.
Well, it's about trust. And that's what Chuck always tried to build as a creative.
Yeah.
He tried to build trust. He wanted you to feel like you've made the right choice when you buy this and build trust for the client. And really, that's what we, as problem solvers / voice actors, try to do. We try to solve a problem and build trust for the product that you've entrusted to us. And that's really all it is. I mean, that's why I got the job for Outrageous Acts. I took a chance.
Yeah.
I took some risks. and they loved what I did. They came back and they gave me another fake script, and they said, "What would you do with this?" And I riffed on it, Gareth, and they loved it. And they were like, "Okay, I think you're our guy." So, and I did that all the time with the girls. I was like, "Here's your line," and I'd read it a couple times, and then I'd say, "Here's my line." And I made the cut, I'd say 50% of the time, the stuff that I would rewrite. Now, to be fair, some of the stuff I replaced was changing it from British speak to America speak.
Yeah, of course.
But some of the lines were just, I'd throw in little tidbits. And I swear to God, after I started being goofy, so did the scientists. It's like it gave the scientists license to be a little more silly, a little more playful.
When they came back, season 2 or whatever, they'd seen it on. I mean, that was with the scientists, that once they kind of sat down in the studio and we were filming them, and they didn't really kind of know what the whole thing would be. They were kind of just sat down and like, here's some YouTube videos that are a bit weird, right? Now answer these science questions. So they were like, okay. And the really strange thing was, as an English guy, I went over there, and as I said before, I've got a background in science. I wouldn't say I'm not Stephen Hawking or anything, but I've got a fairly good understanding. And I sat down with these the American scientists we had, and they were kind of like, "Well, what do you want me to say? Where's the script?" I was like, "The script," and they said, "Yeah, well, you've given all these notes and research. We've read all that. That's great, but what exactly do you want me to say?" I said, "Well, you're a professor. I want you to say what you understand about this clip in your own words." And for a lot of them, and I discovered later, a lot of American sort of science kind of TV is kind of made by English majors, and they don't really know about science, the producers. Right. They kind of just write a script, right? I want you to say this about wormholes, or I want you to explain the law of thermodynamics like this, and they'll cut and paste it out of Wikipedia. So a lot of these guys that produce that in America, they're probably great at the entertainment, and they're great at the writing, maybe probably better than me. But when it comes to the science, it becomes this sort of, it's just cut and paste it in there. And we're not going to mess about with that on shoot day because we don't understand what they're really saying. So if they started flipping the script or going off on one, we wouldn't be able, how are we going to make sure that's correct? So I remember with a couple of the guys, I was like, well, just tell me, I'll ask you the questions. They were literally like, what? You just want me to talk? You just want me to say stuff? I was like, yes. Yeah. That's what the interview is. And once they got into it, like you say, once they'd seen season 1 and they'd seen the voiceover work with you and the tone of it, I think they kind of, when they came back, I remember them coming back and went back in the studio, there was this total vibe of, right, I get this. Here we go. Bang, bang, bang. I get it. I know what you're after now. So the first season was kind of tough to kind of just say, hey, no, it's cool. Say just something funny. Be silly.
Just be you.
Explain, quantum dynamics, how you understand it. I'm not going to, I've got a grasp of it as well. So I'll tell you if you're wrong or if I think it doesn't work in the script. But we kind of, let them go on it. I think that's the success of it, because I think it went for 10 seasons or more, 10. Plus all the extra bits on science, and I think around about sort of 2015, 2016, it was kind of floating the Science Channel at that point. It was, you couldn't get enough of them, and we couldn't make the episodes fast enough, which is amazing. Which is another great thing about America is when a TV show hits there, it's like, boom, do it. It's Henry T. Ford. It's get the construction line out. It's bang, bang. I want 30 episodes now. Whereas in England, it's like, oh, we'll have 2 of those and then see if it's in, and then maybe we'll have 4. Oh, wait a bit. Oh, next year, should we have 6 of them? It's like, they in America, they go for it, and they smash it hard. So it was really cool. And I think I remember hearing you, I think with my American colleagues over in, that was back in Washington days, DC, I think they were based.
Yeah, they were in DC.
And they were kind of like, here's the American version, I think I remember. And I heard your voice, and I was kind of like, that's great. That's kind of exactly what I imagine the American version to be. And it's like you say, it's kind of, there's an instinct to voiceover artist. I mean, I have a friend who's a host and he does acting, and we've been good mates for many years. And, I hear about all the auditions he goes on, and he's quite a robust character. And he's got a very good sense of humor. And it's that kind of idea of, it's just whether you fit the part. If you don't get it, it's not because you're rubbish or you can't do voiceover. It just doesn't quite tonally fit it. And then, if you're a great voiceover artist, you have the skill to be able to
subtly dial.
Just flex
you
enough.
Can subtly dial.
Yeah.
And
get yourself just to where it needs to be. And I think that's a real talent, to be able to see because maybe a lot of people listening to this might not have seen a rough cut of a show, but it's, it's a little bit messy, and you've got a producer who's cut the show, and they're kind of doing the voiceover like this. They're not really trying to perform it. They're just going, here's Dave, and he's gone into his kitchen, and he's now about to talk to Sue. I wonder what they're going to talk about, and then you get that tape, and it's like, right, make that really exciting. So it's a real talent, Tim, from your side of things, to go, oh, this is what it needs, and then do it. And it's often, and sometimes even doing that when you've just been given a script and you've got to record it yourself. You don't even get a chance to come into the room and do the audition.
Which as voice actors, especially seasoned voice vets, we really miss, because this means everything. When you see that you've connected with your story, your words, when you can see the creatives sit up like a meerkat, and they're like, oh, you got them, or at least you got their attention. And you, as the creative, as this is your baby, can say, you know what, you're really freaking close. If you just dial it up a little bit here, punch this word. We don't get that when we're on our own. We have to make it up. We have to make a choice, stick with it, and go with it.
It's kind of like, for us, it's like for me anyway, I mean, other people have different approaches. It's kind of like tuning a guitar string, kind of when it's in tune, it feels good. And I've hired other voice actors for stuff in the UK. I hired one for a car, and they were kind of suggested to me, and I kind of, they were really great talent, like really what they did as a comedian stuff. But I was kind of like, when it went down on tape and I watched the shows back, I'm like, is this a bit too much? Has this gone a bit too far? And I think in the end I was right for the audience I was playing it to. And I've always kind of, kicked myself in those things. I try and always think about that little voice on my, in the back of my head that goes, this isn't quite right. And there's a couple of times where I've gone, shut up, little voice. Let's just go with this. It's fine. Everyone agree. The channel are happy to do this with this person, blah, blah, blah. But, you've got to kind of know what instinctually, that guitar strings in tune and go, yeah, that's resonating. It's spot on.
Right.
And
right.
And I think, I felt that with you. You feel like, I mean, it might be because of the fact I've heard you on so many trillions of episodes of it now, but it feels as one.
Because I truly loved the show, and I wanted the show to be the very best it could be. I look at every job I do like this, Gareth, and I hope every actor does too. You're part of the team. You're not a hired gun. You're part of the team. And if you're not fully invested. And there's a lady who still coaches. She says the voice is the mirror of the mind. And if you're not fully, the voice is the mirror of the mind. If you're not fully invested in this, you can't hide that. There's no, I mean, I don't know if you know that I interviewed Jeff Stepp, who was.
Yes, I've heard that one.
So, and it's the same thing, when you hear that voice, when you see that person step up to the X, they're either going to be part of the show or they're not, or their voice is going to narrate the show or they're not. You can see that they fully committed to what they were doing. Still in all, they might not be the right choice. I was replaced once by a friend of mine because, and I liked the show. I didn't love it, but it wasn't me. It was the show, because it only lasted another season. They're like, yeah, this isn't such a great show. Bye-bye. I'm hoping that what people get out of this is your process and what you do and how we relate together as a team, the creatives and the actors alike.
It's a difficult thing. I think when I've had to pick a lot of voiceover people, and I think to get work, what you can do is get yourself a really great reel that really gets to the point of what you can do and shows your range. And we're talking about that sort of, how much you can, the wiggle room you've got in your talents where you can pitch your voice, and then have that set up on a prominent website or with a prominent agent, and you're there. Mm-hmm. And then that, I think, that's where a lot of hard work you need to put into pick the very best sound bites, the very best demos of what you do. And I don't even care when I listen to those things if it's, whether it's a clip from your latest Ford campaign or whatever, or whether it's just you in a bedroom going, oh, I'm pretending to talk about a chocolate bar. It doesn't really matter. I'm just listening to whether the voice is any good. But it's that quality of, if you've got the right kind of clips on there that really sell you straight away.
Sure.
And then the rest then is kind of, like I say, it's that tuning in, because I'll hear it and in my head I've got in mind, right, this is kind of the sound I want. And then as soon as I hear it, I'm like, yes, they're in the yes pile. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes someone will be so, and I think also if you've got a characterful voice, you're not, the usual voiceover voice, but if you've got something interesting about voice, go with that and lead on that, because I might hear that as well and go, well, I did want a guy that talks like this, but actually now, there's a wee Scottish fella that talks like that. Maybe that'll work better, for me. And then I'll go, oh, actually, that's opened up a new little dimension to the show.
Right.
So I think it's great if you've got something to offer there. I put that on display as well. And then I think that you get to the point then when you've got your shortlist pile, it's then kind of, I get down to that instinct. Then it's kind of playing them against your show and going, get a little, if you can get a little demo off them, playing, even if it's on their iPhone or whatever, just get a little, put them against the show a bit. Maybe I normally try and, put them in a little rough cut and just get a sense of it. And I've had people like British talent that, major like actors and stuff. I've had, really keen to be on something. And I really like them as an actor and what they've done on television and film and stuff. But I've gone, oh, it's not right. And I've actually gone for someone who's just a working, I say just, no offense, a working voiceover artist. They don't come with a celebrity credential. So because they fit better and it works, it hits the sweet spot. So I think it's, I think for voiceover artists, I think that it's displaying yourself well. I think that's the key. So I can quickly get to you and get you on my pile.
Part of it is, does the color of our voice fit the palette of your show?
Yeah.
To me, that's what it really is. And that's brilliant that you put the voice behind the show, maybe put some music in there, listen to it against and say, yeah, see, they don't, some actors are so good, they overpower the show instead of be part of the show.
Yeah.
I think, honest to God, and I don't like to keep coming back to the outrageous acts, but
oh, come back all you want. It's my
the thing about it. Well, yeah, I mean that's our common bond. But the thing about it was, I sat in the track, and the show wasn't about me, but it was about how well everything worked together. Yep. The music was always cool, really cool, and the mix was always cool. The scientists finally loosened up and just had fun, and the show just gelled. And here's how I knew the show was a hit, at least in the States. By the people that were advertising on it. Once you see A-list commercials going on there for cars and trucks and for Viagra, I mean you knew you had something. And the really cool thing is twice I was approached by teachers that said, "Hey, because they said my son tells me you told him that you're the voice of Outrageous Acts of Science. I'm a science teacher, and I want to let you know that sometimes we play clips, that particular thing, what they did on the show, in my class." And I'm like, really? That's very cool.
Yeah, I get that too. I love that. That's the best thing about that show is the amount of sort of Facebook sites or things have been created by teachers where they've used it as a teaching resource, and I think that's brilliant. To make a show that actually goes and does that, because that's kind of going back to what I was saying sort of earlier. I like to sort of entertain people with TV and make an excuse to explain something to them at the same time. If I can get you to go wow or OMG or whatever, and then go and then make you go, why is that happening? Oh, well, here I am with an explanation. That's what I'm always trying to do. So whether it's with Outrageous Acts or with the Richard Hammond thing, the Great Escapists, we're trying to kind of go, look, these two guys are stuck on a desert island. How do they eat? Or how do you build a tree house to live in? Or what are the conditions you're living in? So you're kind of going, well, how would they do that? And then I go, here we go. Here's a sequence where we explain how you'd build this, or how you can take an engine apart and turn it into this, or how you would catch a fish if you've only got X, Y, and Z. So I think that's my quest. And all the shows that I do now, that I'm pitching now for Cornwall Productions, they're all kind of engineering, pop science, cars. They've all got that thread to them. It's kind of, I want it to be really entertaining and get you to go, right, that's so cool. I really need to know how it's done. Because if I'm not doing that with a show, it's rubbish, boring. I don't want to make it. It's not interesting for me. And I think that's when I know I've hit the sweet spot with an idea, because I kind of go, I can see how this works. People will find this entertaining just as a show on its own.
Honestly, dude, I think you just answered my question. Your whole thing is mixing science with entertainment, because the problem to solve is, how is it done? The people watching the show want to know, how is that done? How did that person not die when they did that?
Exactly. And Outrageous Acts is the perfect combination of that. And I don't think anyone realized when they were putting it together to begin with. But, YouTube is so relatable, authentic. Everyone loves watching YouTube videos. And there is so many of those things where you see something like, you see some guy in Alabama shoot a propane can on a tank on a lake and it flies across the lake. You go, oh my God, these guys are insane. And they're kind of like, why did it do that? Then you need an explanation. And we just provided that. I think it was no more, no less than that. And I think that's why it did so well, because it's so relatable and it so offered itself to explanations. And also then it just hit every single box as it went on through the seasons. The Discovery Channel, even Nat Geo's, and I mean Nat Geo did a copy version of it as well. That it hits every box. I remember it was. I'll tell you this, Tim. When you came on, so you were like, when we got you, as it were. No, the first season was it, or a couple of seasons. You did them with American people, and then they basically said, "Oh, have Tim and just make it all American in London." So we didn't do this. We started off doing the worldwide version in English, and then you did a reversion, did you? But then we got you and just made it all. So when we got you, it was quite funny because I knew you'd heard my constipated attempts of doing the voice for the, and I was like, oh man, and I was literally like, because I think I was in the studio with you first day. Sure, those first couple of seasons, I think you were around. I was like, oh man, this guy's a professional. And I was like, and I said to one of my colleagues, oh, do I tell him that I'm that guy that he's hearing on the international versions?
You eventually did. I think you eventually did.
I mean, to be honest with you, I did feel a bit like a constipated clown when I was doing it. I was trying my best.
Well, you were trying to make the show exciting.
I was trying to, you know those really nice, gravelly, deep voices. I haven't got one. When I go down there, it just sounds like constipation, and I need to buy some medication to help out.
Right.
And is that just a natural gift to have that kind of low timbre? Or can you do that, Tim?
Sometimes, I hate to say this, but sometimes guys get it from whiskey and smoke, from smoking. Sure. I mean, there's guys that talk like this is because they drank a lot and smoked a lot, and a lot of it too, Gareth, is what I call mic trickery. So here my voice has a nice tenor sound, but if I move a little closer and I speak more from my chest,
so if I go like this, I'm as deep as I can go. It's quite hard to understand what I'm saying, though. I just shouted and had as much fun as possible, and then I get really, which you didn't do, because obviously I could hear you all the time. You very rarely made a mistake or a fluff. I would just get them wrong all the time, and then, as you know, with English people, we swear a lot, don't we? So there'll be a lot of swearing, me effing and jeffing.
That's fine.
Trying to, and when you've got that line of commentary to read out, and you've just got right to the end. It's really, it'd be like literally they'd write me stuff like she sells on the seashore, and I'd be doing that, and I'd fluff it up for the 12th time. I'd just right at the end, and I'd be so angry. I'd have to have a glass of water and. But the great thing is you're in a soundproof room. So actually doing primal scream therapy is fine. You can just scream your head off, can't you?
The reason why I didn't fluff so much is because you guys would kindly send me the script days in advance. Even if there were
practiced. I could tell. But you would be amazed how many hosts and voiceover people don't practice. You think since it's their profession that they would do that, but it's amazing how many don't.
With a commercial, I don't as much, because commercial is more, hey man, what's going on? It's you and me just kind of having a conversation.
Right.
It's different. It should sound more offhand. Whereas with narration, you've got to get the words precise, but not, I don't want to sound like this. You don't
But
want
of course,
to
if you've learned the lines, then you can concentrate on performance, can't you? If you just turned up fresh, which I've had people turn up and go, what's this? And I go, well, that's the script you got last Tuesday.
And for me, I know what kind of narration stuff I book, and most of the time it's going to be fun stuff. It's not going to be, I did a few dark and stormy shows. That's what I call them, dark and stormy night shows, where it's very close. I did some stuff for Discovery where everything was very scary. The volcano's going to explode, cover the whole region in ash. And it's different.
It's a very sexy volcano, that, Tim. Very nightcaller volcano. Hello, volcano. I mean, the only reason I became a voiceover man was because we started making that show, and as you do, you get the first rough cut and you send it to the channel. I was about to send it off and I was seeing what we'd done. And the edit producer, we call him over here, there's, the producer that sits in with the editor and they do like the guide voiceover. It was all a bit lackluster and I was kind of going, I know it's only a guide voiceover. I know it's only technically there so you can understand it, but, sell it a bit because this is the first time the channel will see it. And they were very like this, and here's something really exciting happening next. I think it's exploding. So I was like, right, give me the microphone. And I was like, you want to do a bit more like this? Right, here's something amazing happening. This is going to explode. And then everyone in all the edits are like, come and do it in ours. And also actually between us when we were making the show, it kind of felt a bit of a lull when it was all put together to begin with. And I'm not saying I'm the hero or anything, but, well, I am. My voice was on it. And then you were like, oh, I'm like, I've woken up now because someone's shouting at me and going, look at this, it's awesome, And then off we went. And then I put it through to the channel, and which was surprising, actually, with for most shows. They were like, oh, we're vibing this. This is good. We really like the show. I was like, oh, you don't want to destroy it with notes? You just actually like it? Oh, yeah, we do. So off we went. And then it was like, as I said before, going back to voiceover artists that I must have gone through 80 people. And at the time I was looking for a British voice because it was for the worldwide. So Discovery for worldwide, that's every country except for the US. They tend to go with an English accent rather than an American accent. And then they, like you do the American version. And I went through piles, but I had some really great people come in who I'd seen on other shows. And like I said, it just didn't feel right. And it got to the point where it was kind of the 11th hour and I couldn't find anyone. I kept putting these voices in that I thought would work. And the channel again, no, it's not quite right, is it? And I'm like, well, not really. And it finally got to the end where, I can't remember, it wasn't at Discovery in London. They kind of went, well, who's the voice that we're hearing? That's fine. And I said, well, that's me. And they went, oh, well, you've got yourself a voiceover job. So I was like, I'm not, being a producer first, I'm like, I am not going to make a rod for my back by going, no, I won't do it. And then just have a nightmare. So I was like, yep, great. I'll get it. Because it's all about delivering the show on time. If you don't deliver a show on time, you start to lose massive amounts of money as a production company. So I was like, yeah, let's get on with it. They are right. It feels good when I watch it. I think I got to that point where I probably heard it so much by then that I just got used to it, like you can do, if you're listening to something, so many times. And then I just started, and it was very trial by fire because I was in a voiceover booth and I'd done a lot of producing with voiceover artists on shows I'd done up to that point. But being the monkey in the cage, as it were, being stuck there, being told
it's different. And it's on you. It's all on you. All right. So I wanted to ask you this question: is there any? Well, you kind of touched on the fact that you're working on some new stuff. Is it verboten to talk about, or do you want to talk about it?
A couple of things I probably shouldn't say now in case someone rips me off and steals my idea. But
that's fine.
Generally, my Cornwall Productions is sort of, hopefully, I'm trying to be the place that you come to for pop science, pop engineering, and auto shows. So that's kind of what I've been making over the last 10 years: car shows, science shows, engineering shows, and that's what I love. I kind of thought, when I thought I set it up, you need a USP, don't you? You need to have something to offer as a production company. And I thought, well, actually, there is a lot of kind of science production companies out there. But I know a lot of the guys, who run them are getting a bit older, and they kind of do a lot of the more straighter stuff. And I think my strength is what we talked about with OAS, is that, I can have the sort of funnies and the information, mix them together and try and entertain. So I thought, well, that's what I'm offering. So,
sure.
And I think as we go down the line, I think with all the different channels that are, the SVODs that are appearing, and the streamers, and a different amount of cable channels out there, and in the UK as well, I think they are like after that kind of content. And I think that if you can sort of entertain them and explain stuff, you've got a good chance of getting some commissions. So that's kind of what I'm all about right now.
Right. And it seems like a lot of the shows have gone that direction too, at least for Discovery networks and History and Nat Geo networks. It's not just about giving information, it's about entertaining too. At least for the last decade.
The ambition's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. You look at stuff like that Will Smith thing on Discovery Plus, Disney Plus, at the moment. That's taking epic essentially it's a kind of classic sort of science travel log on planet Earth, but you throw in Will Smith and Darren Aronofsky on doing the visuals, and you've got this epic thing that, it kind of works because my wife sat down and watched that with me, and she would never watch a show about volcanoes and stuff. It's just not her thing. And she was like, what?
Right. I did watch
yeah,
the show.
And you're like, what's Will Smith doing? Oh, I'm suddenly watching a science show. So that's kind of, that's kind of what I'm about. But I'm
same thing with Morgan Freeman, in
exactly.
his
exactly.
show.
And you do a very good impression of him, don't you?
Actually, there was a friend of mine that does a much better impression.
Oh, come on, don't be shy.
He goes, I tried to do
There
Morgan Freeman. It's not very easy.
Can you do, you get busy living or get busy dying? That's the Shawshank, isn't it?
Well, it's get busy living or get busy
dying.
Oh,
it's bringing it all back to me. I feel like I feel like he's walking up the field to get the
Shawshank Redemption,
under
baby.
The tree getting the
one of my favorite movies.
Thing.
One of those movies you could watch over and over. And Morgan Freeman, I love you, man. I could listen to you read the phone book from A to Z.
Yeah.
and make it sound interesting.
I mean,
so, speaking of which, who are some of the coolest people you've ever worked with?
The coolest people. Well,
I mean, either side by side or talent.
I've got the people. It's an interesting question. I'll tell you the people I really love, and I think that's part of kind of getting on with them at a level as well. I suppose. I mean, I work with Richard Hammond, which I kind of known. A lot of the guys who do Top Gear and Grand Tour have kind of come through car shows that I've done and exec, and all kind of known sort of about each other for a long time. It's the first time I actually worked directly with him and to him, because he was the boss of the company that made The Great Escapists, his production company as well. So that was amazing. And it was great to see him on set, like doing the biz. He is, as we were talking about voice actors who just nail it. I mean, he can really make your script come alive. There's many a time where, you've written something, you get on location and it's like action and they have a go at it and you go, oh, right, okay, well, cross that bit out and don't say that then if it's difficult and you don't like that, so we'll change that. Then they have another go. By take 15, you're like, oh, give me strength. What's going on? But you give it to him. He asks lots of questions because he doesn't want to look foolish on the television, which is totally okay by me. So he'll interrogate. Right. Once it's in his head, you can see the light come on. He's like, right, got it. Press record, everyone. Let's go. And he nails it. And he brings to even a pretty average script that I may have written. He'll bring it to life on camera. You go, this guy is, this is why he earns loads of money. This is why they're very well known, because he nails it. And that was really great to see. And then another talent that I've come across, not no disrespect to him, but not quite as big as Rich Hammond. There's a fella off Outrageous Acts of Science called Hakeem Oyushei, who's one of the physicists.
What a great guy.
He's a fantastic individual. And I think I saw him. He'd done like a little tiny bit in a space show for, I think it might have been Nat Geo. And I just came across him. And he's got this booming like Mississippi voice. And he says, instead of saying eyeballs, he'll say eyeballs, which always makes me laugh. And I love when I'm hanging out with him, I try and get him to say words like that.
Well, and he did do a show, something about it, what's out there or something like that. The world's out there. I mean, it was a space show. So of course they're going to.
Yeah, he does how the universe works.
Yeah, how the universe works.
That's it. Thank you. He's still on that now. Yeah, he's doing that. But this was before all that, and I'd seen him on a very quick little snippet. He was just a talking head. And then I think that the other person that kind of comes to mind after those two guys is Tori Belleci, who's one of the guys from Mythbusters. So he's the guy that blows.
Yeah. Mythbusters is a great show.
So he did this show with Richard Hammond, and we got him really well. He's a really lovely guy, and he really knows his stuff. And we had a lot of fun out there. And he's very much into like British comedies, and he's quite tuned into the sense of humor. So, and I think a lot of the Mythbusters crew, I believe, are Australian, because it's an Australian production company actually make Mythbusters. So he's been around a lot of British and Aussie guys, and we've got a similar sense of humor. For the next 4 weeks, I think I've only ever communicated to him as Donald Trump. So he'd be kind of doing a take and be like, Belleci, you need to try harder, man. You need to get this right. You have to be the greatest. Otherwise, we will not finish the take. Do you understand, Belleci? And then he'd turn around and go, Gareth, you've got to understand that I'm an all-American hero. I'll get this right. I said, that is how we talk. I don't think I've spoke to him in this voice ever again. And I used to give him loads of grief, like this kind of. I used to call him all in that voice. Bill H.E., you're an all-American hero. The people want to see you blow things up. You're the guy from Mythbusters. And so he vibed on that. So we had a lot of fun. And it probably actually, although to the outsiders, they thought we were losing our minds, I think it probably actually kept us sane because it was so relentless out there.
Inside joke, baby. It's all about the inside joke.
Oh, yeah. Inside joke.
Yeah, so all you really need is the hairpiece, and then you'll be absolutely perfect.
That's right. But you need the braggadocio. You need to be able to say, I am one of the greatest guys that any guy has ever seen. Even the girls say that I'm the greatest guy. And if I was in charge of...
That's why I have to get all my wives from Russia.
Swings and roundabouts. Ups and downs. But yeah, those are my 3 top guys.
Oh, well, this has been a heck of a lot of fun. But before I let you go, sir, the one thing I didn't send you, and
I thought this.
Well, I was here forever. We don't have to. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to do some bits and cuts, but that's okay. Is there a piece of it? Well, no, we'll get to that in a minute. Then this is our last scripted question, and that is there a piece of advice you'd like to give either actors or creatives who do what you do on your side of the lens who might be listening?
Yes. To do what I do, you got to love TV to become a producer, because that will get you through the extraordinary amount of hours you have to do to get yourself up the ladder. And if you don't really love TV at the beginning, or thinking TV and watch TV and enjoy it and have been brought up by the television set, I think you're going to really struggle. So I think it's just, and I think I knew that when I started out. Like, I love television. A lot of people I kind of, will talk to nowadays, and maybe even more so in America, a lot of their reference points seem to be film, like movies. Even though they're in television, they'll talk about movies a lot. And I don't really care about movies. I've always just enjoyed television for what it is. I've never seen it as a poor man's movie. Which was strange, actually, because I kind of, in that Great Escapists show, ended up doing this weird thing where we were kind of writing a sort of sitcom movie, which I never thought I would have got to, which about 2 men on a desert island inventing things. So it's very, very strange, kind of where I'd never thought I'd go. So yeah, love of TV, and that will see you good. And also my other advice is try and do stuff that you love, because if you end up on a show that you hate, it is hard work, man. It is really hard work.
Again, getting back to, what I feel like I narrate best, it's because I love the subject. And that's why either I make it on the show and stay on the show, or I made the audition in the first place. Because, you connect with the material. And what you're telling them is, if you don't connect with the material, your life is going to be dull drudgery.
Exactly. And that with my company now, what I'm only pitching things that I love.
Well, I love cars, man, so I want to be in on that audition.
Sure,
I love cars.
You can be in the car. But, there's no point in me pitching something that is just to, there's no point in me pitching a makeup show just to make a few pounds.
Yeah, right.
Because I'm just going to hate I'm not going to be good enough at it, because I won't live in that world. I won't love makeup or be able to think creatively in those terms to get something that's watchable. And I know what fans or viewers would want to see. So I'm only pitching stuff I want to go and make. And also, actually, reduce it even more, I only want to do stuff that on day one, if I'm stood there with the camera, I'm excited. So that's the show I want to be on, where I stand there on day one and go, I can't wait to see what's going to happen now. This is really exciting.
Gives you the skin pricklies.
Yeah.
I mean, when I sent in my audition yesterday, my skin was prickled.
Oh.
Which means that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
When I listen back, I'm like, okay, these are the 2 I'm sending in. So again, do what you love, and you never work another day in your life. The old saying goes.
And it is difficult. On your way up, you will have to take, I've done some antique shows and stuff.
Sure.
on the way up to pay the bills. But
which I do. I love that too. That's okay.
I'll give a better example. I produced Gladiators.
Ooh.
So the British Gladiators. So, that doesn't feature heavily on my CV if you were to.
All right. So
and it was madness.
So the last thing, like I said, the last thing I want to ask you is something I didn't send you on purpose. And I have 3 lightning round questions, but you don't seem to have any trouble answering anything. So that's
quick fire questions. Right.
Yeah. Here we go. If you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
Well, I trained as a teacher, so that'd be that's a safety net. but I'd really think I'd love to be a music producer. I'd love to go get some bands in London, get them in the studio, and tell them how to make a number one song. I've no proof that I could do that. I just feel like it would be fun. It was something that I'd love to do.
Wouldn't it blow your mind though if you got them in there and you had a blast doing it, and you actually gave them some stuff that they were like, you know?
I mean, I love rock music history. I love it. I love digging into all these famous names, and a lot of producers, you know, from the past 3 or 4 decades in music. They're just smart kids who've kind of put themselves out there. They've got in with a band. They go, I'll produce in the studio. And, you know, they know what they want to hear. They know what they want. They're tuned in. And, you know, they've become extremely successful. You know, you just need to have the kahunas to get in there and get involved.
To jump in, you know?
Yeah. So
it's the old improv credo. The answer is always yes and.
Exactly. So, yeah, music producer, dream job. That would be...
I like it. That's the outside of the box answer that you kind of.
Well, I'm too old to be a rock star, so yeah, it'd have to be the producer.
But I'm in a band. My buddy started all these different bands, and he pulls musicians in and out. But the singers are strategically placed where they fit. I'm in a band called 70s FM Radio.
Nice, good name, good name.
And he wants me to do, I do the Who, I do some Southern rock and roll.
Which Who?
But I said, dude, when we come back. The song I do is Baba O'Reilly.
Oh, yes. That's Daltrey at his finest, that one.
Yeah.
What about protecting your livelihood, though, if you're ripping out your vocal cords on a night, screaming like that?
I was a singer long before I was a voice actor.
So I shouldn't book you for the day after you've done Baba O'Reilly, yeah? You'll be a bit, if I want the husky voice, I book you for the day after.
You're right. If you want this voice, then you either hire Chuck Schiller or you hire me. Hang on. Something's beeping.
That was me. I think I've just
very
beeped.
good. Very good. I just wanted to make sure. I was like, is that something on my computer? All right. So here's another question. Where do you see your industry in 5 years? What's it going to look like?
So I'm not so worried about other people because I'm a producer. I make stuff. A content maker. All the things that are quite scary now is just how does that content get delivered? So you're always going to need someone who can write a script and shoot it and edit it. And, whether you chop it down into little 3-minute webisodes for Facebook, or to put on Twitter, or whether you stream it through Disney or whether you broadcast it as a half-hour show, those skills are still needed. So that doesn't worry me. I'm still going to make content. But I think, I definitely think looking around my friends in England, that how they consume it's getting more and more through the internet. It's more and more streaming. So I think, and I think what we had over here, which I think is analogous to how cables worked in America, is we had this late 90s. We had a massive boom in channels. I call them cable channels over here. And then it was like the big bang. It sort of exploded and then it reduced under its own gravity. So now all you've got left from those zillions of ridiculous channels, literally as channels just watching like food in a microwave or whatever all day, it reduced down to like, there's a dozen of them now. I think the same thing will happen with the streamers. Everyone's having a go at it, but I think only the strong will survive. So we'll get down to a handful who can, deliver what people want. And I think I do think that I think the broadcast television is probably slowly demising because it's so much cheaper to send. Well, you can send live TV through the internet. It's so much cheaper to send it through the internet. Why wouldn't you take down all the masts and transmission stations and blah 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 and save a load of money?
Right. And your generation and younger wants to pick and choose what they want to watch when they want to watch it. They don't want to sit in DVR shows or watch a live show and, I hate to say it, commercials. They want to watch what they want to watch. They're the media generation, man. They're the media generation.
I mean, I see that with my 6-year-old. She, it's just that video is no good. Next one. That video is good. Next one. Watch. And it's, no one's got any time to spend, And we've got the same problem, I guess, as the US, is that it's really tough to get the 16 to 35-year-olds to watch.
Sure.
That's the real thing. So places like all the BBC channels, their average age on the BBC, the main kind of BBC One and BBC Two, their average age is up in like the sort of late 50s, I think now, early 60s. So it's like, how does the BBC get people in younger? So yeah, I think I'm not too worried about creating content because it's always a great, people always want to see stuff. And I think there's more opportunities. If I want to make that very tedious documentary about, guitars that were played by the guys from XTC, that's really niche. But there might well be 200,000 XTC fans out there that want to watch that, and that potentially could be something you can make money out of if an advertiser wants to get on board. So I think it does for makers. It broadens out tremendously the amount of space. And then the other thing I know, because I've lived in the world of YouTubers with Outrageous Acts of Science, and a couple of my friends are actually do very well now as YouTubers. There's a lot of power there. I mean, I've got one friend, Colin Furs, who's
he's a nut.
He's like a crazy engineer,
a brilliant nut.
Yeah. I got him on that show because I'd done a TV show with him years before. And then he became a YouTuber. But it's so funny. It's like 10 years ago, I used to call him and go, "Oh, I'm pitching Science Channel a show with you," or "I'm pitching, BBC show." "Oh, amazing! Let me know how it goes." Now, 10 years later, it's like Channel 4 saying, "Do you want to do a show with them?" Or
how about that?
Sky, and he'll be like, I'm not sure I've got the time, actually. I'm making so much money from my YouTube videos. So that, in 10 years, the dynamics switched massively. And sometimes, you've got a show idea for TV. You see a YouTuber, you approach them, go, "Hey, I've got this TV show." You'll be lucky if they reply to you or call you back.
Right. Well, and there's YouTube TV now.
Yeah. Well, they set up their own empires. Yeah, they set up their own empires. If you believe the viewing figures on how they're done, they're getting more viewers than a television station could get. So
they want quick bites of shit, and they want to share it, have people love them and like them, and it's gone and on to the next thing. And that's where your daughter is, and kids in their teens and early 20s, that's where they live. I know that's where my niece is, and she's 19 now. She wants it quick, fast, and then let's get on to the next funny thing so I can share that. Or they make quick TikToks and they post them with their friends, and that's their life.
It's a scary world to understand, but I do believe that I think as people get older on that journey into like their 30s and 40s, they will look for more long form stuff, because as you get older and you settle down, you want to watch a box set. You do then become interested in documentaries or whatever it might be. So I think there'll always be demand for that. Yeah. So I'm quite excited to see how it moves on and changes. I'm
right, because you're right. You make the content where they put it. That's on whoever buys it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess you're right. Now, what do you see yourself doing in 5 years?
I'd like to be the successful owner of a television production company. I'm not super greedy. I just want enough money to buy a Bentley and a big house and to have a butler, and then I'll stop. It's fine. Then I'll give the rest to charity.
Perfect. So the life that I was living in my past life is yours.
Oh, your past life was had a butler. I think it's I think that's my dream. I think it's hard to make money in television, but I guess it's like sort of gold mining. If you just hit the right thing at the right time.
Yep.
Yeah. The only problem I've created this insane theory that I don't know why, that if you look at your CV for a TV career, I think you'll probably be lucky to have 2 hits throughout all that. You'll do a lot of good stuff, and a good TV show is not necessarily a popular show or a hit. It just, a bad TV show could be a hit. I think it's all about timing and the audience and the channel, and lots of fate is involved in how he gets there and carries on. But I think I am a bit worried because I've already had 1 hit with Outrageous Acts of Science. I'm just worried I've got no hits left. And
stop. I mean, you know what? It's like anything else, man. You got to keep throwing stuff out there, and not everything is going to be a hit.
That's it, yeah.
I look at it like a voiceover looks at it. For the 200 auditions I do, I'm happy when I book the 1. So
exactly.
if you pitch 50 shows and you get 1, and it turns into really something like Outrageous did, that's all you can do. Is you got to keep thinking, you got to keep pushing, you got to keep dreaming, and for me, it's writing stuff down. That's how this show came to be.
Well, it's yes. So, I mean, where you come in is if it's an iceberg, you are literally flown in to stand on the very top of the pointy bit of the iceberg with the flag on top, and I've come from millions of yards below the sea up there.
Yeah,
because it's from that bit of paper you write down the first idea. My God, it's like so many things. You've got to you've got to have a good idea, but then you've also got to be flexible, resilient. You've got to have it bashed around. You've got to keep believing in it, because if you put something forward you don't really like, which is, when I say I'm only pitching stuff that I love, because I'm not going to be able to go the full course on something I think's okay. There's no point anyway.
Absolutely.
And then once you get into production, there's so many forces when you get involved with a big channel or network, dragging it around. It's so hard to stay on course. And then, you get to the final bit where it's like, wow, it's in the edit. It's nearly a TV show. And then you're booking your voiceover artist, so you guys come in on a very to turn up and to get the show and understand it and deliver. It's just the last final kind of few moment, oh wow, that's good, that gels, that meshes in with everything else we've done, it all makes sense, brilliant, right, now let's put it out there and hope it goes well. You could come do a voice on an episode that it might all look serene and planned out, but it could have been recut at midnight the night before because a commissioner of channel was demanding X, Y, and Z, and the whole thing being ripped apart. So everyone you're in the room with is absolutely destroyed from stressing out for the last week. And then it's like, right, just say the lines. And then even, sometimes, yes, you book the artist, but they might not even become the final person, because still the channel could go, oh, actually, I don't like him anymore. Can we change,
Yeah.
It's
Sure.
All these things are playing in there. When you come in, that's the kind of person that you're with, So when sometimes when you maybe you meet an exec and they seem a bit aloof, perhaps, or not quite with it, or sort of thinking about things, it's probably because of that. They're probably just doing the maths in their head and kind of going, "Is this okay? Is it all finished now?" Because it's so near the end to delivering it.
Yes.
It's like, am I going to get another problem at this point? So it's still quite a stressful thing up until the end. And then, but I do love, for me, I do really enjoy, because I like kind of audio and sound recording stuff, but it's lovely to go in the final mix and just hear all the music and the voice and everything blend together, and sit in a lovely studio and hear it on different speakers. And the show looks like mush until you really get to the end, because you don't do it in sort of perfect 4K super color. You do all that at the end, and you dress it all up and colorize
make it pretty
and
later. Right.
So you finally sit down and go, oh my God, this thing looks like a TV show. Up until now, it had a really boring voice of a producer going there, and it looked like clips ripped off the internet. And now suddenly it's all, delicious and lovely and sounds good. And that for me is like a really satisfying place to be when you've done a show and you go, I've made this. That's what I'm in it.
And that's why you're successful already.
Well, I don't like to say.
That's why you're successful already.
Thank you, Tim.
You described every element of all the things you have to touch on before it ever gets anywhere near a television screen or whatever screen you watch on, because you like the color of it. You like the pacing of it. You like the mix of it. The fact that you said you like to listen to it on different size speakers, that is so nerd, dude. It's just so nerd, because, I have two huge near fields and then I have two smaller near fields. So I listen to things on all size speakers before I send it off to you if I'm to mix my stuff, I'll listen to it, because I do a lot of promo work from here. I want to see how it sounds on TV speakers, and I want to see how it sounds on big speakers, because you can't
Absolutely. Well, there's so much lost, isn't there? If you don't, because a lot of people just have like LED TV panel with the built-in speakers, which are normally quite bad. So, you need to hear it in that context. Otherwise, you could be losing so much stuff. And those big, deep voiceover guys that I love, half that stuff disappears then.
Right.
And you go, oh, right, it sounds a bit,
right.
So,
right.
Yeah, to listen.
You want the voice to be right here. That's what they say. You want it to be like it's right on the tip of your nose and it wraps around you.
And ultimately, you could be sound nerd. You could be really sound nerdy about that in a good studio. But the other really, really basic thing is I want people to hear what the narrator is saying. And I'd rather them be able to hear him and it not sound perfectly mixed with the music and all that than him buried in mush and no one watches the show because like, oh, what did he say, Deirdre? Oh, I can't hear, switch over. What's the point? I'd rather it blasting out and you just hear a tickle of music in the background.
For me, the perfect show is when the narrator just lives in the story and gets out of the way. If it's narrator driven, like some shows are very much narrator driven. Case in point, Ken Burns. All of his are very narrator driven.
Ken Burns, right?
But for the narrator to live in between, let's say, the scientists, or in between the experts that happen to be on the show, or in the case of maybe your car show, the guys that are going back and forth about how to fix this car or where'd you get the car from, for the narrator to just kind of swim in the track, that's how that for me is the perfect soup.
It's the material you're given as well, because if it's not written properly, you're going to really struggle to blend in with the pictures and the sound, So, I think there's a musicality when I look at voiceover writing and, scripts that, I think in my head now, you kind of see a line, it'll go dum-de-dum-de-dum-de-da, that feels right. But it's sometimes in some play, if it's dum-de-dum-de-dum-de-dum-de-dum-de-dum-de-dum, it's like, this is too long, let's condense it. It's not working with the pictures or if you've got on camera speaking stuff, and then you're going into narrate, and then you're back to, a stand-up talking head or something, there's a musicality to that voiceover. Sometimes if you get given a dodgy line, it's super hard for you to not sound like you're sticking out.
You bet.
So it's our job as well, really. We can really make it hard for you with bad writing.
And it's our job to, sometimes to look at your words and say, how can I make this as good as it can be? Even if it's bad writing, let's say if it's bad writing, you have to be a good enough actor to take something that, because more often than not, actors get stuff that says, and please don't sound like you're reading this. Please don't sound like a voiceover. We want to sound natural. But it's, this weekend, $2.99 only. You're like, okay, well, that couldn't be written more reedy or more commercial. But you want me to sound like, hey, that this weekend it's only $2.99. Talking to my friend next to me. So you have to be a good enough actor to take something that's bad. I'm doing air quotes. You can't see it. That's bad and make it sound great. Give it some different timings. Give it some different fluff.
Exactly. It all helps it blend in and feel that you're on the roller coaster. And also that, like when you do Outrage Sexual Science, in a way, you are coming across as the guy that's put this show together. Do you know what I mean? You're the all-seeing eye, the sort of, you're in the gods, kind of looking down and going, right, next we're in Michigan, and this guy's called Bob. Check out what he does with a flamethrower. You are the controller, so you have to sound like that to the viewer. If you're too passive, or you go, yeah, DNA, that's an incredible chemical compound. What's it made of? If you don't sound like you're into it or interested in it, or you're the person with the levers controlling this little journey,
the man behind the curtain, as it were.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, you're the Wizard of Oz, aren't you? You're the voice of the Wizard of Oz. You have to believe in that voice. If they don't sound like they can, if it's a science show like that, if they don't sound like those words would normally come out of their mouth, or they don't sound like they're taking you on the journey. Right, that was, from London, England to Missouri. If you don't feel like that person's actually in control of the spaceship, it'll just stick out like a sore thumb, and you'll be like, none of this fits together. It doesn't feel like a well-made package. And I think a well-made package, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some really badly made shows that get successful, but I think you can give yourself a chance of being successful if you've got a really good made package. If it's really well put together, and all those things that you talked about there, Tim, with the way the voice works, interacts with what contributors are saying on camera or scenes. If it works well together, then there's nothing to take the mind of the viewer away. So then you've got your best possible chance of getting them to enjoy the show.
Right. You want the listeners to lean in. You want the viewers to lean in.
And if the voiceover's going, oh, there's something going on, then you're like, oh, what's that dude doing? Oh, this is rubbish. Switch channel.
Well, and it was funny because every once in a while, not very often, but once in a while, you guys would write me into the show by saying, right, Hakeem, sure. Because he'd do something and, and you'd have me actually talk to them. I had a conversation back and forth. I think it was with Hakeem, back and forth.
Oh, yeah. Well, I love that fourth wall. I'd love to do a show where the voiceover artist has a camera in the booth. And I'd love them to kind of talk to the camera in there sometimes and go, I don't know why I'm reading this out. This doesn't make any sense. I'd love a show that could be that mad, that could, sort of blow your mind. But I've always had that in the back of my head. If I ever get a show together where that could work, I would definitely give that a go for sure.
All right, well, let's make it.
We do that. Let me just think of the rest of the show that goes with that first.
All right. I just want to be on the short list. That's all, my friend.
Oh, mate, you're on my short list. In fact, for American voiceover actors, you're
right. You're okay for an American guy.
The way I had to learn and then had to teach the rest of the guys how to write in American.
Right.
Because the way we write script is different to Americans. You guys tend to write it a lot more direct.
Right.
So, it would be, if in England, I think maybe because we try to be fake humble all the time and not be too positive
Humble
about
brag.
things.
That's called humble brag.
Yeah, humble brags.
I tried to get them to lean into it because it was like, let's
Yeah.
see what he's going to do now. Really? And there was a lot of times where I was back here doing the show and then really, and then I would get into the mic and try to get them to lean in as I was. And that's where I got my improvs from. I would write my improvs.
And they were very good. We enjoyed them. I've still got a tape of them, all your improvs, the unused ones.
All right,
but you're
brother.
right. You're right. It's very it's a lot more direct when you write American. It's almost written narration is written. The American shows I've done. It's more almost like when I sit down to write it American style, almost write it as though it's like a commentator, like there.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the way British writing is that it's a bit more off, standing slightly back from what's going on the TV screen. So it's kind of like, it's I almost pretend like I'm a live commentator. We're here in Thingy. This is Dave. Dave's got something amazing.
Right.
Bosh, whereas the English is a bit more standoff. Now we're going over here.
Right.
And we're going to, of all the people in the world, it's a man called, and it's all slightly more stand backish, less direct.
It was fun, dude.
And actually, I think the British stuff is a bit flimsy and floppy to listen to sometimes. And I think sometimes when I've done shows, since I've made American shows, even my British voiceover writing is a bit kind of American now because I prefer getting to the point, efficiency of words.
The only thing I really used to change much was some of the words that we wouldn't say in the States.
Oh, yeah.
Or even phraseology. We wouldn't phrase it particularly that way. And I still remember poor Laura. She's like, it's just so weird to hear you say garage instead of garage.
Garage, yeah. I say garage. It's even, yeah. So she's posher than me from the south of England. So they say garage. They have long A's.
I was going to rap, my friend.
I can't actually.
So we can just say, thank you so much for everything you did for me and thinking of me for Outrageous Acts of Science. And thank you for being on the show, sir.
Well, thanks, Tim. This has been, it's made me think about my life in television in a whole new way.
Me too. What am I doing? What in the hell am I doing?
I should thank you because you did a good job. And that's why that show ran for so long. So it's not you, it's the other way around. Thank you for doing such a good job.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. And thanks so much for being on the show. I knew you were going to be fun and funny, just the way you always were.
Oh, well, thank you. You're a very nice man. Very nice man.
All right. Well, good luck with whatever your next thing is that you can't talk about.
Okay. Well, I'll let you know when I can. We can do an update chat when it comes out.
All right, brother. Take care. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers, Tim. Thanks, mate.
Well, that was a lot. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for hanging with us. That was Gareth Cornwall from his beautiful home in London, England, sharing a little time with us and a whole lot of knowledge. On our next show, we're going to talk with somebody from DDB Chicago who is incredibly disciplined and incredibly creative. So please tune in next time for Mr. John Karstens. Well, let's wrap this thing using Gareth's music once again because, hey, I was digging that jam. Yeah, nice. So until next time, remember to always find your flow.